Today I wanted to do a tutorial on how to play Bach's Polonaise in G minor, which in this case is number 119. So I already have a performance video of this piece out on my channel, so if you want to hear what this piece sounds like before you kind of get started with it, you can become familiar with how it goes, which definitely makes learning pieces easier. If you haven't seen that video already, you might want to go check that out because it really will be a help with learning this piece. But what I wanted to do in this video, instead of playing it through at the full speed, what I wanted to do is first show you the sheet music and kind of walk you through all the interesting things that are in the sheet music that you might want to look out for when you're learning the piece for yourself. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the different types of staccato this piece has in the sheet music as well as on the piano, to kind of show you what they look like, how you can tell the difference between the three different types of staccato, and also how they sound on the piano. And then after I do all that, I'm going to walk you through the piece finger by finger, note by note, and show you how to play it. And then after that, I'm going to play the piece all the way through, but really, really slowly. So hopefully, after you've worked on the piece for a while, you'd actually be able to play along with me, and hopefully that would help. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the sheet music. So let's take a look here at the sheet music of the Polonaise. I just kind of wanted to show you guys some of the stuff here. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting is this book is from roughly about 1890, and so at some point in the past, some student, some teacher, someone, first of all, wrote a little check mark to show that they passed this piece, and also to focus on the fingering and staccato, which are two important things to focus on this piece. As I said, there's actually 3 different variations of staccato in this piece, so it really is something to focus on and something to make sure that you're doing properly. A couple of things we should look at on the piece is the tempo, which is quarter notes at 100. That's the maximum speed that you can play the piece at. I mean, if you wanted to play it faster, you could, but the proper speed to play the piece according to this version of the sheet music is the quarter note equals 100. So you just set the metronome speed to 100 beats per minute, and then on each click of the metronome, you would play a quarter note. Another thing that this piece says here is a study in phrasing and in the correct timing of quarter beats, which are very important things also to watch out for and make sure you're doing properly in this piece. The fingering, the staccato, which also kind of ties into the phrasing as well, and also the quarter beats, which I imagine are the 16th notes, because there's quite a few of them. There's some down here later on in the piece that you can't see. They're down here. I'll get to that in just a second. And so I'll show you those, and also there's also some dotted rhythms here as well. So there's a dotted 8th note that then would move on to a quarter note, and I'll show you, I mean a 16th note. And so I'll show you guys how all of those rhythms work and how they sound along with the metronome, and also just kind of how they sound. So I'll show you that later on in the video as well. At the end of the video, I'm going to be playing the piece all the way through at a really slow speed, so if you guys want to play along with it at home, maybe you will find that that will help you out. Now, we were mentioning the phrasing and the staccato earlier, so one thing to point out is the 3 different variations of staccato in the piece, and the first one shows up right here in this measure. As you can see, it might look pretty normal, it might just look like staccato notes, but if you notice, there's a slur over the staccato notes down here, as well as here. As you can see, there's a dot over the notes like a staccato note, but there's also a slur over, and that indicates portato, which is kind of like a calm, mellow, mild staccato, where you don't necessarily play the note very disconnected and very brisk and briefly, but you do want to play the note with a little bit of extra space in between the notes. That's kind of how I interpret portato to be, and I think that is the correct way to play it. Now over here in this measure, we have normal staccato. As you can see, we've got a couple of staccato notes here, as well as a few up here that do not have a slur over them, but this one here is actually portato technically, but these ones are not. So that's just something to kind of watch out for. And so you're also going to want to make sure that you're doing the portato kind of gentle enough to be able to do normal staccato normally, and then to also do staccatissimo, which is kind of like a really intense staccato. You want to have space to be able to do that more intensely than normal staccato. And I'll show you guys again, I'll show you guys how all this works later on in the video, and I'll also show you what staccatissimo looks like on the sheet music in just a bit here. But I just want to take it line by line to kind of show you guys the interesting things about the music. Now, as you can see here, the first 2 lines are actually exactly the same. As you can see, we've got these 3 quarter notes here, we've got those there, we've got this little run here with the F sharp and the E natural, we've got the same run here with the F sharp and the E natural. So these first 2 lines are exactly the same, and in some versions, in fact, the first 2 lines are actually compressed into one, and it just has a repeat bar at the very end of the first line to say, when you're done with this line, repeat it, go back to the beginning, play it again, and then move on to the rest of the piece. So here are the 3rd and 4th lines of the piece. I just kind of wanted to show you guys them and just to kind of guide you through the piece and see what it looks like on the sheet music. Now, again, someone else in the past has written in some counting down here. We got 1 and 2 and 3 and. So someone in the past wanted to make sure they were doing the timing right in that measure, and they also circled the E there for some reason. I don't really know. I didn't do that. I don't know why they did that. I assume they were just checking the timing, and maybe they're missing that note. They were forgetting to play the E flat probably. So again, circling the notes and stuff is a great way to kind of mark off stuff in the sheet music. If you're forgetting something, just circle it. If you don't want to, play a certain note, just circle it to be like, hey, don't play that wrong. And a good thing to do in this piece, in fact, is to actually go around and circle all the different types of staccato notes. For example, you could circle all of the staccato notes that are portato, or you could circle all of the ones that are normal staccato to kind of help differentiate and to be able to tell, okay, when I see this note, I play this type of staccato. When I play this note, I play the other type. So this line here, overall though, is pretty straightforward. The timing has more 16th notes in it, but other than that, there's nothing really terribly crazy to look at. It's all, there's no accidentals, there's no anything strange in this line. But down here, we get something rather interesting. First of all, that same person in the past wrote in some fingering here, which is really nice. But this is where this piece gets a little bit interesting, because this is the third type of staccato. This is staccatissimo. And as you can see, there's like a little triangle. It kind of looks like a little Dorito chip above and below each note. And so basically what that means is you're supposed to play the note like staccato, but even more intensely, like really, really, really disconnected. Like if staccato is disconnected, staccatissimo is super disconnected. And that's kind of how staccatissimo works. So when you're playing it, you want to make sure that you're playing the staccato gentle enough so that it's more staccato than portato, but you want to play it gentle enough so that you have enough room to play staccatissimo very, very disconnectedly. We also have an F sharp here again in the music, so another accidental. And that's about it for the third and fourth lines. So let me come down and show you the last line of the music. So let me just quickly show you here the last line of the piece. This is the second to last line. It's one we just looked at. You can see we've got that measure there with the staccatissimo. And this is the last line of the piece, as you can see by the little repeat sign at the end. And that is the end of the piece. The next page over here, which you actually can't see, but that's the next piece. So basically, we have another measure here of staccatissimo. What was kind of interesting is the first note here actually has a slur over it. So I imagine you'd kind of play this first note a bit like normal staccato, because it's kind of a blend between staccatissimo and legato. And then here you'd want to play actual staccatissimo. So that's just kind of something interesting, that there's a slur over the staccatissimo note as well. Now, if you wanted to, you could just play it like normal staccatissimo, but I think technically you would want to play it a bit more like normal staccato, since it does have the slur over the top note as well as the bottom note. However, that is the last measure in the piece with staccatissimo. There's only those two measures in the piece that have the special staccato type. And then after that, we just have a few more measures of just basically the normal music. We do have another F sharp here, and we also have a couple more notes of portato, and then that's about it. That's all of the different staccato variations in the piece. We also have another portato note down here, and then this one here as well as this one are both supposed to be standard staccato. We also got some dynamic markings. I think I might have already said this, but the dynamic markings are kind of optional because the editor who edited this sheet music probably added them in. Bach wouldn't have had dynamics like that, because the keyboard instruments that he would have played, which were clavichords and harpsichords, we did not have any kind of dynamics capable. You could play the keys hard, or you could play them quietly, and they still would have sounded the same. So the dynamics does add a really nice bit of extra dimension to the piece, but they are rather optional. And of course, if you're playing on a historic keyboard instrument like a harpsichord or a clavichord, you can just completely forget about doing dynamics at all. So now let me show you how the piece looks like on the keyboard. I'll walk you through what the different staccato types sound like, and also a little practicing tip for practicing the 16th notes and the dotted rhythms. And then after that, I will walk you through the piece, and at the end, I'll play the piece all the way through at a super slow speed, which hopefully will help some of you guys. So let's take a look down here at the keyboard at the Polonaise, but what I want to do before we actually get around to playing the piece is I want to show you guys a couple of things about, first of all, the different types of staccato that are used in the piece, and also just a kind of a cool way that you can practice on the timing in this piece to make it a little bit easier for yourself. So first of all, what I'm going to do to demonstrate the different types of staccato is I'm going to play the right hand of the first measure. I'm going to play it through a bunch of different times, and I'm going to play it with a different type of staccato each time, and I'm going to discuss why it sounds different and what is happening. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to play it through as if it had no staccato and no legato, and it's just simple straight notes just like that. So that's what I'm going to do first. So let's have a listen to how that sounds. So that was just no staccato, no legato, no anything. And what you really want to be paying attention to the most here is the B flat and the C, the last two notes in that measure. And basically, you just kind of want to listen to how they sound, because here, if you listen to them, they sound like they're being held for their full duration, but there's a tiny little gap in between each note. Hear that? There's a very, very small gap, but you're holding the note for a long time, so it doesn't sound like it's being disconnected. Now, legato basically means to play connectedly. So to play legato, we'd want to just kind of hold each note for its full value, but also just play each note directly after the other, like this. Hear how that sounds slightly different from like that? Legato is this. And again, it means to play connectedly and to play smoothly. Now, staccato is the opposite, basically, of legato. And staccato means to play the notes disconnectedly and briskly and briefly, and to not, basically to not have them sound connected. You want to make them sound independent and broken apart, like this. I'm just going to play the last two notes staccato, because in the sheet music, the first two notes aren't staccato, just the last two are. So make sure to pay attention to the B flat and the C again. I imagine that you can hear a difference there. There is a lot of space in between each note, and the time that you hold the note down is very short. Just like that. Now, in a normal piece, in most pieces, what you'll have is you'll have some notes that are staccato and you'll have some notes that are legato. And for most pieces, playing the legato notes connectedly and playing the staccato notes disconnectedly, like I just did there, will be perfectly fine, and you will be fine. But with this piece, you have to be a little bit careful with the staccatos, because as I've mentioned, there are actually 3 different types of staccatos. One of them is regular staccato, but the other one is called portato. Now, portato basically means it's basically a cross between legato and staccato, and that's kind of how it's written on the sheet music as well. It's staccato notes with slurs drawn over them to indicate that you're supposed to play them connectedly, but also at the same time you're supposed to play them a little bit staccato. So basically portato works kind of like playing it without staccato, but giving each note a little bit of space in between. So it's not going to sound as disconnected as staccato, but it's not going to sound as connected as legato. Let me give you a demonstration of that. Again, pay attention to those last 2 notes. Those are the ones that have the portato being applied to them. And that's basically how I understand portato to work. It's kind of like staccato, except you don't play the note very briskly, like this. That's staccato. Portato is this. It's kind of like a calmer, more gentle staccato. And you can also kind of think of it as being kind of like the regular quarter notes, except having a bit more space in between each note, like so. Now, the final type of staccato that appears in this piece is kind of towards the end, and it's called staccatissimo. And this is where you really want to be careful with how you play the normal staccato, because you don't want to play the normal staccato too briskly. You don't want to play it like this, because then you can't make the staccatissimo be even more disconnected than that. That's about as disconnected as you can make it sound. That's how staccatissimo is supposed to be. It's kind of like a more intense staccato. The notes are really supposed to be really sharp, really fast, and there's supposed to be a lot of space in between them. They're supposed to sound very disconnected and very separate from one another. Again, just pay attention to those last 2 notes. The first 2 don't have staccatissimo on them. That is how staccatissimo sounds, as opposed to staccato. There's a little bit of a subtle difference. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is on piano, the difference between these staccato types is actually a bit reduced. If you were to play it on a harpsichord, or even just with like a harpsichord sound on a keyboard, and you play these different types of staccato, you can really hear a difference, and something about the piano just kind of makes them kind of blend together a little bit more, the different types of staccato. So that's just something kind of interesting to note. But when you're playing it, you do want to have a difference between portato, staccato, and staccatissimo. You want to have staccatissimo be very brisk and very brief, staccato to be kind of somewhere in the middle, and then have portato be kind of like a more gentle version of staccato. So now that that discussion is out of the way, I want to talk briefly about how you can practice the timing of this piece to make it a little bit easier to understand, and the way to do that is going to be with a metronome. Now, normally when you're counting 3/4 time, you're going to want to count each beat as being 1, 2, let me get that off. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I had the little click indicator to be on 4, but that's not how you'd be counting 3. You'd want to be counting it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's how you'd normally count 3, 4 times. Now, if there's eighth notes involved, you'd want to count it like 1 and 2 and 3 and like that. And that would work on a metronome like this usually. If the beat is corresponding to the quarter note, counting eighth notes would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and like so. And the same would work for 16th notes. You'd be counting 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and a on each beat. And that would, each little 1E and a there would kind of signify playing a 16th note. So there's 4 16th notes in each beat, so each division of that 1E and a means to play a different 16th note. But what you can do with this piece and with 16th notes in general to make it a little bit easier is instead of thinking of each metronome click as being an individual beat, think of it as being an individual 16th note like this. 1E and a, 2E and a, 3E and which allows you to play the piece very, very slowly, but also still be completely locked in with the metronome. And on top of that, one thing you can do is you can take the little count indicator, I guess you could call it, on the metronome and set it to 4, 1E and 2E and so that on every new beat of the measure, it has a different sound, and that's one way you can kind of keep track of where you are in the song, in the piece, in the measure, and make sure that you are indeed doing the correct timing. I'm going to put this out of the way over here. And let's hear how that first measure would sound with the metronome like that. 1E and 2E and 3E and So that's just one way you can count it, because that, I'm going to turn this off here, that little bit at the beginning that has the dotted eighth note that's connected to the 16th note and then goes on immediately to the quarter note might be a little bit tricky to kind of look at and be, okay, that's how it's supposed to sound, that's how it's supposed to feel. So playing it along with the metronome like that, with each click of the metronome being a 16th note, can really, really help out with that a lot. So if you're having trouble with 16th notes in a piece, if this one, whether it's this one or another one, I highly advise doing that because it's a great help. So now let's take a look here at the first line of the Polonaise. I've talked a bunch about staccato and 16th notes, but let's actually get around to playing the piece. So what we want to do is we want to play both of our thumbs on G, like so. Just like that. And then after that, we want to play A with our second finger in the right hand. We want to hold that G down here. Then after that, we want to play the B flat that's right up here with our middle finger as we play G with our middle finger. Then we want to play C with our fourth finger as we play G in the left hand with our second finger. Just like that. Now the reason that we're actually changing the left hand finger is just to kind of make it a little bit easier to play that G over and over again. So instead of playing like this and moving your whole hand, you can just play G and move your fingers. And it's a lot easier. Might feel a little bit weird and a little bit counterintuitive at first if you've never seen this before, but it actually does make it a bit easier in the long run. So the second measure of the piece, we want to start off with our thumb on G, and we also want to play our thumb on A up here. Instead of G, we want to do it on A this time. Like so. Then we want to play A again, play B flat. Then we want to play our middle finger on C as we play 2 on F sharp. Go down to E, head back up to F sharp, then play D. And that is the end of that second measure. So let's check out the third measure. The third measure goes like this, where we want to play thumb on G again, and then we want to play second finger on B flat. Play B flat again, go up to C with our thumb. Then we want to play G way down here. This is the lowest note in the piece. We want to play that D with our second finger and then jump up to G in the right hand. Then we want to play B flat with our middle finger, and then we want to jump down to D. You can do that either with your second or your third finger. It really doesn't matter. Either way you do it won't really affect the piece as a whole. So I often will do second finger, like so. That's what the sheet music says. Then after we want to do that D, we want to come down here to B flat, and then play this B flat as we play this D with our second finger in the left hand. This is the start of the next measure, and then we want to play A. Go back up to B flat. Then we want to play G. And then we're going to jump down to G. Go back up to B flat with our fourth finger. Come up to D. And then that is the end of the first line of the piece. Now, some versions of the sheet music might only have a first line of the piece, and then after that there would be probably 3 other lines, maybe 2 if the versions kind of compressed it and made it smaller. But the reason there might only be 1 first line that sounds like that is because in my version of the sheet music, the first line and the second line are exactly the same, and so some publishers might actually take that first line and just put a repeat bar at the end, and then only have 1 first line that goes like that, and then after that you'd play the first line, play it again, and then after you play it the second time, go on later on in the piece. However, the second line of my book is exactly the same as the first line. There's no repeat there for there. So what I'm going to do is just play the second line of the piece here nice and slowly, just to kind of give you an idea of how the timing is supposed to sound, and also you could watch for the fingering. Just like that. That is how the timing of both the first as well as the second lines are supposed to sound. So now let's move on to the third line. So let's take a look here at the third line of the piece, which we want to do by starting off on B flat with our second finger as we play G with our thumb. Then we want to do like a cross under and crossover technique at the same time. We'll go to A with our middle finger as we go to C with our second thumb. Then we want to play B flat and D, just like so. Then we want to kind of come back on our left hand and play A as we jump up to F. Now we want to really jump where we go from this fourth finger down to D in the right hand, like so. You could also play that F with your pinky, but I thought that the reach from D to F felt kind of weird with doing 2 to 5, so I just did 2 to 4, because that feels a lot more natural, and then just jump down to that D. And when you jump down to that D, you also want to play B flat at the same time. And that's the start of the second measure. Like so. Then you want to do C, go down to B flat. Then you want to play this F with your pinky. Then you want to go up to B flat, go to C with your fourth finger. Then you want to play the A with your second finger. And then you want to play the F as in the right hand as well as in the left hand. Now, while you were playing those notes where you go up to C and then come back down, you should be changing your left hand to the second finger, kind of like that, silently, and hold that F down. But by the time you get to the third beat of the measure, you should be prepared to play that F with the second finger, just like that. So that's kind of how that works. It might take a little bit of practice, but over time it will become natural, and it's something that you should get used to, because if you're going to be playing a lot of Baroque music, it can happen quite a lot. Like that. That's how that change should work. Hopefully you were watching. Let's try it again. Now you can either kind of change to 3, sit on 3, and then wait to play 2 until the last beat, or you can change to 2 and then play 2 on the last beat of the measure. Either way, it just doesn't really matter, just as long as you're changing your finger so that you can get to 2 just like that, so that you can continue walking down in the scale those 3 notes of the next measure. But let me start off on that F, show you that finger change one more time, and then we'll move on to the third measure of the third line. So let's check out the third measure here of the third line. Basically what we want to do, as you saw there, is we want to reach up here to F with our fourth finger as we play this D with our pinky. Then we want to play D with our second finger. We want to play B flat with our thumb as we play G with our thumb. Go up to F again. Then we want to play E flat with our middle finger as we go up to G, like that. Come down the scale, E flat, D. Then we want to play this C with our pinky, which as you can see is kind of already sitting there. Then we want to play C with our second finger, A with our thumb as we play F with our thumb, play fourth finger on E flat, like that. Then we want to come to D with our fourth finger as we play F with our pinky, and then walk down the scale again, just like that. And that is the third line of the piece. So let's check out the fourth line here of the piece, which starts off with our middle finger up here on D as we play a B flat with our pinky. Then we want to play second finger on C then we go back up to D. Then we want to play thumb on G as we play fourth finger on E flat. Want to go down to D again. Want to play thumb on C as we play middle finger on E flat. Want to cross our middle finger over to get to B flat. Then we want to play second finger on A as we play thumb on F. This is the start of the next measure. Then we want to play B flat in the right hand. We want to play C with our fourth finger as we play E flat with our second finger in the left hand. Then we want to go down to A in the right hand. Then we want to play B flat as we play D, like so. Go up to E flat. And then we want to kind of change the right hand pinky, with the right hand middle finger to the pinky, like that. And then so you'd play that B flat on that D, like I showed you earlier. You want to go up to E flat and just kind of change the middle finger, just like we did earlier with the left hand. I told you that would happen a lot. It happens again in the piece here. And then we want to play B flat, like so, as we play that D, just like so. So now let's take a look at the first measure here that has the staccatissimo in it. So what we're going to want to do, I'm not really going to play the staccatissimo, I just wanted to kind of announce that this is the measure with the staccatissimo in it. So what we have is we want to play B flat with our pinky here in the left hand as we play D with our middle finger. Then we want to play E flat and C, like so. Then we want to play G and E flat, just like that. And again, those are all supposed to be staccatissimo, so when you're playing the piece at its full speed and with all the expression, you should be playing those really nice and brisk, like I showed you at the beginning of the video. Just like that. Now after we play that, then we want to tuck our thumb under to D and cross our second finger over to F sharp. Then we want to play F sharp again. We want to play that D again in the left hand. We want to go down to D with our thumb from the fourth finger, like that. Then we want to play on the way up, we want to play F sharp with our second finger as we play this C, like that. Then we want to play A with our middle finger. And that is the end of the second to last line. So let's check out the last line of the piece. Basically what we want to do is we want to start off with our pinky on D in the right hand as we play this B flat with our left hand. And that's going to be on our middle finger. Now there's a couple of options you can play with the fingering in the left hand here. You can go up to C with your thumb. You can then go up to E flat with your second finger. And then at the start of the next measure, you can play this D with your thumb. Or as I sometimes do, you can just you can start at the beginning of the measure from B flat, play second finger, play thumb, and then just kind of come down like that. Either way works. Whatever feels more comfortable for you is what you can do. So again, let's start off at the beginning of that measure. We want to play D and B flat. We want to play the E flat up here with our fourth finger. Then we want to play our thumb on G as we play that E flat, like so. Then we want to go to second finger on F sharp as we move our thumb to D, like so. Then we want to play F sharp again. We want to go to G. We want to go up to A. Then we want to go down to D again as we hold this D for the whole time. Then we want to go to F sharp. Then after that we go to A with our middle finger, and then that is the end of that measure. So after that we go up to D with our pinky as we move down to B flat in the left hand. Now here we want to change our finger to second finger. We don't have to do that kind of like hold the note down and change. We just go pinky, let go, and then change to second. Then we want to go to D. Then we want to go play D again, and then go up to E flat, like that. And then we want to play D again as we go up to B flat in the left hand. Then we want to go up to G, and that is the end of that measure. So the last measure here of the piece is really simple. We just play this B flat up here as we play this D. We play A. We go back up to B flat. Then we play G with our thumb, change it to pinky, and then reach down to this low G. And that is the whole piece. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the piece all the way through at a super slow speed, mostly as a timing aid for you guys. I'm not actually going to be doing all of the staccato and the expression, because at the super slow speed that I'm going to be playing it at, during the measures that are only quarter notes and are only staccato, there'd literally be more metronome and more silence than there would be piano playing. So as a result, I'm not going to be playing the staccato because it would honestly sound a little bit strange and be a bit disorienting. But what I am going to do is I'm going to play it through at the super slow speed of 112 beats per minute, which might not sound that slow, well. But what I'm going to do is each click of the metronome is going to represent a 16th note, like I showed you earlier in the video as a practicing aid. I'm going to play the whole piece all the way through like that, and so that's what I'm going to do. So this is how it's going to work. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a. And as you can hear, every time the metronome makes that different sounding click, that ping, that is going to be symbolizing a new beat in the piece. So let's have a listen to how the Polonaise sounds at this super slow speed, and I really hope doing this helps you guys. So that is what the Polonaise sounds like at that super, super slow speed, and I really hope that you guys found that as a help to practice the piece and hear what the timing sounds like at that super slow speed. Playing the 16th notes, particularly those dotted rhythms there that happen every so often, can really help you kind of figure out how they're supposed to sound, how they're supposed to feel, and really internalize that dotted 8th note followed by the 16th note, and help you kind of internalize that rhythm and just get to know how it sounds a lot better and get to play it better. So hopefully you found this video to be helpful. I really, really like hearing all your guys' awesome comments about how my video series are helping you, or that you're going to be following along with them in your future endeavors to learn the piano, which I think is so, so cool, and it just really makes my day when I see comments like that. So if you really are finding these videos helpful, make sure to let me know, because I just think that's really awesome that you guys are actually enjoying them. And if you did like this video and you found it to be really helpful, make sure to leave it a like, and also if you want to subscribe, make sure to do that as well. And if you do subscribe, also don't forget to hit the notification bell to be informed of all of my future uploads, whether they are tutorials and performances like this, or reviews on pianos, organs, and other cool keyboard instruments. Whatever you like on my channel, make sure to hit that notification bell to be informed of your favorite type of video that I do on my channel. So once again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.